Father, we know that all things work together for the good, and we just ask God today that you would just speak to our hearts and speak to our minds. Everyone that's on this call, Father, we just pray that you would open up their minds, open up their hearts. Father, let them be receptive, Lord, and we just ask that you would just lead us all to truth today. Father, we know that the truth sets us free, and we just ask you, Lord, to open our hearts to what is just, what is true, and what is right. Father, we just ask you bless this call today. Speak to our hearts and our minds. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Thornell.
You're welcome.
So obviously, if you were invited to this call, it was for a very specific reason. Some of you may be a person of color. You may be a minority. Some of you may not be. I still welcome you to be on this call. There will be some hard truths that are shared. So I ask that you stay open to the truths that are shared tonight. But this is really simply to educate you and to help you to be armed with knowledge with making different choices moving forward as it relates to your health and as it relates to your total body health and wellness. So again, like I said, my name is Robin Sullivan, and I'm very blessed to be able to share with you tonight. So we have seen on the news over and over and over now, it really started kind of cranking up in the media probably late last week, like over the weekend, when they really started seeing how some of the statistics, were shaking out as far as who was really being impacted by COVID. But guys, I'll tell you this, I'm from Louisiana, and I knew as soon as they said that New Orleans was one of the most highly affected areas, I knew what was happening. I used to go to Xavier University. I went there my first year of college, finished out at LSU in Baton Rouge, and I grew up in Louisiana in Shreveport. And so I knew with just that one, just the statement that Louisiana is being hardest hit. So we go from New York to Louisiana. It's like New York, you understand why that would be the epicenter, right? It's like the hub of really the whole entire United States, because so many people are coming in and out of New York. Also, simply because of their subway system, there's so much transferring of germs and that's their big public transportation system that most people use in New York City. You could see why that would happen. But when Louisiana got on the map so quickly, shortly thereafter, New York, I'm sure for a lot of people that aren't from Louisiana, they didn't really understand why. And people were saying, oh, it's for Mardi Gras. And that partially, I'm sure that was part of it. But a lot of it I know has been because Louisiana is one of the few states that the population, while it's not predominantly Black, New Orleans is a predominantly Black city, and it is being hit so hard with this coronavirus. I'm just going to start with a few statistics. Know that when I'm speaking tonight, I am speaking specific to the African American race, but this really this applies to all communities of color, Hispanics, anyone who is considered a minority in this country. They all kind of fall into the same category. It's just that African Americans tend to be, we tend to have higher numbers of a lot of the things that I'm talking about. So Hispanics probably will fall into this category too, but African Americans are always the highest in numbers that aren't necessarily good. So, and we'll talk about the reasons why also as well, okay? So first of all, 42% of the deaths from COVID in Illinois are of African-American descent, but yet they make up only 15% of the state's population, okay? Chicago specifically make up about 30% of the population, African-Americans do, but 70% of the deaths from COVID are Black people, okay? So that's a staggering number, right? Louisiana, 70% of the deaths are African-American, but we make up 33% of the state's population. Michigan, 40% of deaths are African-American, but we make up only 14% of the population in that state. And we know Detroit is being hit extremely hard right now. And Milwaukee, 81% of the people who are dying from COVID are Black, okay? Now, I'm going to give you some more statistics in just a minute that don't necessarily relate to COVID. They do, but they don't. It's not about COVID, but it's the underlying factor and what underpins why we're seeing the numbers that we see with COVID-19. So there are factors that contribute to why African-American communities or communities of color in general are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. The ones that I'm about to state, it's included but not limited to. So I really want you guys to understand there are other factors. We're not going to get into in-depth reasons why, because I could be on here for hours talking to you about the social implications, oppression, lots of things that have contributed to why we find ourselves in the position that we're in as a culture. But I want to just briefly state a couple so we can get those out of the way and we can acknowledge that those are issues, and those are issues that really need to be addressed. But at the same time, tonight, for the purposes of this call, I really want to talk about something that we truly do have control over more than we think, okay? So one of the factors is job types. If you've noticed, a lot of the people who are being affected by this, they're frontline workers, they're essential workers. And it just so happens that essential workers happen to be, in many cases, minorities, okay? They're those lower paying jobs, right? People who work, and not necessarily all lower paying jobs, but people that are working in grocery stores, people who are working at gas stations, people who are working at doctor's offices, whether they are truly healthcare workers or they just work in a doctor's office or they work at a hospital, healthcare workers in general. All of those people tend to be, a lot of times they end up falling into that minority category. And so by nature of that fact, they are being exposed more, right, than other of our non-minority counterparts, okay? So there's a disparity there just simply because, okay, well, if these essential workers are having to go into these situations and they're being exposed, they're gonna have a higher likelihood of actually catching COVID-19 or coronavirus, okay? So that's one. Job types is a factor, okay? Another factor is just simply lower incomes. If you are in a lower income bracket, and we all know minorities, we make lower incomes in general, by household than our non-minority counterparts, Caucasians, okay? So if we are making lower incomes, we're making less money. What do you think are the implications of that? The implications of that is that we're probably not focused on buying healthier foods, organic foods. Organic foods cost more money, right? We're probably not spending a whole lot of time and our resources of going to the doctor on a regular basis. Sometimes that's just culturally. We just culturally been raised, you don't go to the doctor until you're about to die, you know? And so a lot of us, you've seen a lot of people, and I'm really, really sad. I'll be very sad, even more sad than I already am, because I've literally been crying because of these statistics. When everything shakes out and we learn about the people who've been dying in their homes, and we learn and figure out that there's so many people who actually died of COVID that we haven't even discovered yet. So those numbers aren't even in the data. So lower incomes, distrusting the system. I don't know about you guys, one of the first things I heard was that Black people couldn't even get coronavirus. I don't know if that kind of was put out there. And I think I was the only one that heard that, but in a lot of communities of color, for weeks, I think people were kind of walking around business as usual, thinking that we couldn't catch it, right? Another one is lack of adequate health care. That's a big one. Another factor is lack of access to quality food. So in highly urban areas, there are food deserts where people are just going to the corner store or to the nearest Popeyes or Church's Chicken. They're not even able to go to a quality grocery store, or it's so far away that it's not convenient. Okay. So those are just some of the reasons and the factors as to why African Americans and communities of color are being affected in the way that they are by this virus. However, one of the biggest factors, though, that has contributed to these grim statistics is simply poor lifestyle choices, okay? And that is my goal tonight, is to share some knowledge and wisdom about lifestyle choices, things that we actually have control over, okay? So these are, another thing I wanna point out, I'm sorry, another statistic is that genetically, African Americans have been predisposed to certain health conditions. And I want to speak to just one. There's many, but I'm going to speak to one tonight. So when slaves were brought here, when African Americans, we were Africans at that point, we weren't African Americans, when we were brought here on slave ships through the Middle Passage hundreds of years ago, we actually, that's when the predisposition for African Americans having high blood pressure started. And the reason why is because when slaves were brought here through the Middle Passage, most of the slaves who made it through that long trek from Africa to America, the only people that made it, the only slaves that made it, the Africans that came here in captivity, the only ones who made it were the ones that had high salt intake. Okay, they were the ones that could actually get through the Middle Passage and make the trek because they could retain and hold a lot of water. Okay, those who could retain and hold water were the ones who actually lived. They survived it, because trust and believe, through the Middle Passage, through slavery, there were lots of slaves that were just hawked overboard because they didn't make it. They didn't live. Okay, so we're already predisposed to high blood pressure because those of us who actually could take in a lot of that salt and hold in because we could stay hydrated and not die, that made it where our blood pressure levels were heightened. Okay, so we were already predispositioned to have high blood pressure. So when all of those slaves came over who actually lived, and all of the ones are the ones that could take high salt intake or take in more salt, they then interbred. They had families, they made babies, and then that's how this has, over centuries, we still have something that really wasn't of our own creation. We didn't create this predisposition in our bodies, but a lot of Black people really do suffer from high blood pressure for that very reason. Do we have control over it to actually get it under control, even though we're predisposed? Absolutely we do, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight as well. Okay, so that's just one of the things, factors that are genetic, that I want you guys to understand. I completely acknowledge that there are things that we didn't necessarily ask to happen to us, right? We know this. But at the end of the day, there are things that we do have control over, and that's really what I want to focus on tonight. Chronically being oppressed. If you're in communities of color that are oppressed and poor, when you're in constant fight and flight mode and you're constantly just trying to survive, you don't even know how to thrive, you're just trying to survive, that sends your body into high stress levels. Stress will kill you. So there's lots and lots of factors, okay? But there is a factor that a lot of us who may be even middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class, I'm sure there's an array of different socioeconomic backgrounds on this call tonight. But those of us who are in just the middle class range, the middle class area, you know, we're making decent living. Some of us have college degrees, some of us don't. We're making a decent living for our families, or we were before COVID, right before everybody got, you know, sitting at home trying to figure out how we're going to make it happen. A lot of us have the means, right, to make better choices. We just choose not to make them. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So a couple more statistics that I want to share with you. Black women in particular are dying at a faster rate than any other demographic from preventable diseases. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. A lot of my passion comes from the fact that I've had so many premature deaths in my family. My dad died when I was 29. He was only 63, preventable disease, heart disease. My grandmother, who was a historic figure in Indiana, she was the first Black public defender in the state of Indiana. She died at the age of 59. From complications of asthma. We then had a stint of deaths in our family very quickly, all within 13 months, several years after my dad passed, where my aunt died at 73, my uncle died at 62, and my cousin died at 55, all within 13 months of each other, all from preventable diseases, okay? So when I begin to calculate this life expectancy of what my odds are, I'm looking at the age of 62. Well, I'm already almost 42. So I don't want that to be I don't want to keep that statistic going in my family. And so that's the reason why I've made some of the decisions that I've made for my own personal health, which creates a ripple effect for the rest of my family. Okay. So you may have not calculated the life expectancy for you based on the death or mortality rate of the people in your own personal family, but I really encourage you to do it, because it's really staggering when you think about it. Because there are so many people that have so much in them left to give, that God has a bigger purpose for them, and they are gone too soon. And so that's the reason why I just want my dad's legacy to live on, by me imparting a lot of the knowledge that he's given me, which I'm sharing with you tonight. So we should all be tired of having our loved ones die prematurely. Some more statistics I want to share with you is 54% of kids in the US suffer from an autoimmune disease. We'll talk about the implications of autoimmune issues. 1 out of 5 kids have some sort of mental health issue. Black children and families are 20% more likely to have asthma. They are 40% more likely to have high blood pressure, and Black women are 3 times more likely to have lupus and sickle cell in comparison to their white counterparts, okay? The other statistics I want to share with you is specifically about Black women. Black women are dying at alarming rates, okay? Half of Black girls will get diabetes unless diet, filling nutritional gaps, and levels of activity change. If those 3 things do not change, then we will be losing half of our Black girls, okay? They will get diabetes, okay, unless those things change. Those are just the statistics. That's the data. 82% of Black women are over a healthy weight right now. They're over a healthy weight. 53% of Black women are obese, okay? So it's one thing to be overweight, okay? So 82% of Black women are over a healthy weight, over what the recommended BMI or body mass index should be. But 53% of us are obese, all right? And every day in America, this is the saddest statistic of all, guys. Every day in America, 137 Black women die from a preventable disease. That disease is heart disease. 137. I don't know if y'all can put that into perspective, but 137 is more than gun violence, cigarette smoking, and HIV combined. Y'all, it's more than gun violence, cigarette smoking, and HIV combined. That's the capacity. 137 people is the capacity of a regular size plane, not like a 757 Boeing, but like a normal size plane that we got on before we were quarantined, right? When you go on a flight, that's 137 people. So imagine it's in essence like a plane crashing daily full of Black women, and no one is talking about it. No one. So we had a health crisis way before COVID-19, y'all. We had a health crisis way before coronavirus ever crept into our world. This is a crisis. It is an epidemic. And it is what's happening right now. And it's been happening years before COVID ever showed up, okay? And as sad as this is, really, truly, over 90% of the illnesses and deaths that I just spoke about, they're all preventable. Every single one of them are preventable illnesses, okay? So what we want to talk about tonight is specifically what this virus is doing. I really want people to be armed with knowledge about the coronavirus itself, okay? And viruses in general, okay? Viruses do not harm or kill us. I'm going to say that a couple of times. Viruses do not harm and they do not kill us. Viruses do not harm and they do not kill us. We have trillions of viruses living inside of us. Just like we have trillions of bacteria living inside of us, we've got trillions of viruses as well, okay? And what we don't really understand is that it is the overreaction of a weakened and dysfunctional immune system to the virus that results in our own body attacking its own cells and organs, resulting in harm or death. That is what's happening with this coronavirus. It's not, the virus is not killing us, because if you look at the numbers, a lot of us are looking at only the death rate, but look at, it's 450,000. I haven't looked at the news much today, but it's maybe 450,000 people in the US who have a positive coronavirus. Those are just people that know, right? There's lots of people that had it and didn't know they had it, right? Or they had it and maybe they had mild symptoms, or maybe they were completely asymptomatic. They haven't been tested though. But the people that have been tested positive for coronavirus, there's lots of people that are living. The problem is not that African Americans are being hit harder, is that African Americans aren't able to survive this virus because of the weakened immune system. Therein lies the issue. It's because of the weakened immune system. So it's not the virus that's killing people. It is the overreaction of a weakened immune system. That is the reason why the hydrochloroquine, the whole thing with that, and President Trump saying, hey, let's give them this lupus drug that's been effective. Hydrochloroquine is an immune suppressant. So when you have a weakened immune system, okay, what happens is that your body then tends to overreact. It gets into fight or flight mode. It's like, oh, I have to protect the body. Your body, God designed our body to naturally protect itself, to naturally heal itself, right? And so when your immune system is suppressed and it's weakened, then your body then begins to overreact when it feels like your body needs to protect itself. So it's that overreaction of that weakened and dysfunctional immune system that begins to attack its own cells, the tissues and organs, and that's what happens with this coronavirus. So some of the underlying conditions, we talked about several of them, but I'm just going to put it into 4 or 5 simple categories for you. So the underlying pre-existing conditions that Dr. Fauci keeps talking about, a lot of the physicians on the news keep talking about, is obesity, diabetes, heart disease, smoking, and just being immunocompromised in general. Okay, so those are the things that are really hurting the communities of color, that are being impacted the most and the hardest. Okay. So for a non-healthy person, for someone's body that is not producing the right amount of vitamin A, your gut bacteria is also off or out of balance. You consume high amounts of sugar. You have now compromised your immune system, and your body's T cells are now being destroyed. Okay. So vitamin A, the amount of vitamin A your body has, your gut bacteria, if it's out of balance, right? If you consume high amounts of sugar, all of those are huge factors, and you now having a compromised immune system, okay? So some of the causes for these underlying pre-existing conditions that I just said, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, smoking, and just being generally immunocompromised. One is aging. That's the reason why they say that's a big factor, is if you are an elderly person, you are more susceptible to catching the virus and then not recovering from it, or being drastically impacted, right? So aging is one. The thyroid level is huge. Okay, the thyroid level produces vitamin A, but when you have a thyroid issue, which so many women do, of all races, right? But if you have a thyroid issue, your thyroid level then goes down. Okay, which means your vitamin A production goes down. Okay, so that's an issue. If you got a thyroid issue, it has to be addressed. Okay, and it has to be addressed from the inside out. Okay, just taking Synthroid or Armor, yes, it is getting your thyroid levels back in order and check, but it is not getting to the root cause. Vitamin A is literally used to create a cell wall. It's like it's a deadbolt that protects your cell wall. Okay, another thing that really impacts with you aging is your vitamin D levels. A lot of us have lower vitamin D levels for many reasons, but when you age, your vitamin D levels go down, okay? So vitamin D also produces chemicals that are antiviral, okay? The sun is a healer, y'all. So if nothing else, get your sunshine, 30 minutes. And depending on the color of your skin, you may need to have more, right? So, because it's all dependent upon the melanin in your skin, you know, how melanated you are. Okay, so go and study that. The other thing that I want to share with you is the vitamin C levels in your body. Your vitamin C levels are very important as well. Okay, that's very, very important as well. I'm trying to see why my screen is doing some weird stuff. Okay, your vitamin C levels are also very important. When you age, you again produce less vitamin A, which means you get less cytokeratin. Okay. You also have less or lower levels of hydrochloric acid. Your hydrochloric acid levels go down. All of this creates this perfect storm of why people who are contracting the coronavirus, those that are being hospitalized, and some even ultimately die of the coronavirus, this is what's happening. All of the studies are showing that you're having these lower levels of vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, cytokeratin levels go down, your hydrochloric acid levels are down, but this naturally happens with people who are aging. That's the reason why you have to be doing some things differently. When I was 20, I was doing nothing for my health. I was just living my life, right? Living my best life. But once I turned 35, 40, I realized, oh, my body's changing. I gotta do some things differently. I have to be more proactive than reactive with my health, okay? Another thing is lower gut bacteria. When your gut bacteria, it likes acid. So when this lowers, your microbiome goes into dysfunction, Okay, when you have certain types of gut bacteria, when those levels are lowered, which they naturally lower when you age, then that's when your microbiome goes into dysfunction. We'll talk specifically about dysbiosis and what that really means and how it impacts your health. Okay, another one besides aging, another factor of causes of underlying conditions is high sugar diet, massive sugar diet. It's one of the biggest issues that we have in this country, but particularly in communities of color. We are addicted to sugar. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So just one simple thing is just knock the sodas, knock the energy drinks, knock the juices, just start drinking water. That will do, it would just create so much benefit for your body, and flushing toxins out of your system. It's huge, okay? But high sugar diets create an increase in candida overgrowth. Okay, candida is a yeast that naturally is produced in your body. You actually get it. It passes through when you're born, through your mother's womb. And so when you're born, you have a very small amount of candida yeast in your system, though. It's supposed to be there, okay? Scientists say that the candida yeast that you're born with is for decomposition when you die. So if you think about a mushroom in a forest, okay, and you think about a mushroom that overtakes an entire tree in a forest, okay? So you walking around, you're hiking with your kids, you're camping, and you see all of these mushrooms that have taken over this tree. Eventually, what's going to happen to that tree if it continues to get overtaken by these mushrooms, i.e. fungus, right? It's just a fungus. It's going to go back to the ground. It's going to come right back to the ground. It's going to die, okay? It's the same exact thing with candida yeast. Candida yeast then begins to grow rampant. It loves sugar, so it feeds off of the sugar. So what started out as a very small amount that's supposed to be in your body ends up being completely out of balance. So you have more of this candida yeast, which is bad gut bacteria, and you have less of the good yeast, which is the good gut bacteria. Okay, you're supposed to have an 80%, 20% ratio, 80% good and 20% bad. In this country, and particularly in communities of color, we've got the opposite. We have 80% bad and 20% good. Okay, so a high sugar diet is one of the main reasons and causes for that. There's also pollution in the air, drinking too much alcohol, taking too many birth control pills, other environmental factors like just eating too many processed foods. We eat so many fake foods in this country, it's not even funny. Our bodies are designed to process things that come from the earth, to digest things that come from the earth. So when we're putting things in our body that are laden with preservatives, laden with Roundup from crops, I mean, so a lot of times we even think we're eating whole foods, like things that come from the earth, but if they're not organic, or really not even if they're organic, y'all, if we don't have our own farms in our backyard, then we really are not necessarily putting everything that's whole and true in our body every day, okay? So one of the other things too is that besides a high sugar diet is your lifestyle. Okay, lifestyle plays a big part. So poor dietary choices, just like we said, adequate nutrition, lack of exercise, stress is a huge one, especially in the Black community, especially for Black women. Stress is huge and it will kill you. It's literally what dug my dad into early grave. Stress and poor lifestyle choices. That's why my dad died at 63. Okay, lack of sleep and smoking. Okay, so those are lifestyle choices that really contribute to being in those immunocompromised categories. And the last one is environment. Some of these we have control over, some of these we don't, depending on where we live. Dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. That's just it. Dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. Do you think it's not by accident that Detroit is being hit so hard? It's not just because it's primarily African American. It's because Detroit has been dealing with their water issue for years, right? And so in these communities where they have dirty air, dirty food, dirty water, that's going to be an issue, right? So there are some things that we can't necessarily control. My job is to educate everyone that I know on things that we can control, okay? All of these things play a part in becoming immunocompromised, okay? So for a normal, healthy individual, an innate immune system will take care of this pathogen, this coronavirus. It's going to take care of it, okay? You might still have a fever, you may have that lingering cough, but you will be able to recover from it. Unfortunately, for a lot of people who aren't healthy, they can't recover because their weakened immune system begins to overreact. And that's the number one goal right now, is to understand, well, what are the things that we can do right now? So I want to share with you a little bit of wisdom from something my dad shared with me about 30 years ago. I was literally like 8 years old, and he was reading this book from the Browder File. Some of you have probably never heard of it, but it's an amazing book. It's the author is Anthony Browder. And he had a whole chapter in this book called Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. I'm going to read you a couple of excerpts from this, because it literally gave me chills when I opened this book back up, because I distinctly remembered when my dad read me this chapter, and I didn't even think anything of it then. I mean, it resonated with me, which is why obviously now I'm in the business of health and wellness. But these words of Anthony Browder don't ring any truer more now than they did 20, 30 years ago. So I'm gonna read you a couple excerpts from here. He just talked about, how we as a culture, we eat, drink, and we make merry. And he said, wishing the good cheer of a long life, peace, and prosperity, the food choices that you make may end your life prematurely. Without a doubt, by eating foods fried in heavy grease and with excessive concentrations of sugar and salt, you may be feasting your way to an early grave. We've definitely allowed a killer to run loose in communities of color. This killer is responsible for more deaths than drugs or black-on-black crime. This killer makes all age groups its victims, stalking its prey during all hours of the day and night. This killer is responsible for the high infant mortality rate and the slow, miserable death of many of our senior citizens. The killer is the diet of the African American people. Then he talked about cancer of the colon is the most common form of cancer in Blacks. Colon cancer is intricately related to diet, just as alcoholism is related to drinking, or lung cancer is to smoking. Okay. The colon is an essential part of the digestive system. If we are dying because our food is not being properly digested, then we must reconsider the foods that we put into our bodies. The body is basically designed to heal itself, y'all. It has the capacity to regenerate over 2 billion cells every single day. Does our body regenerate 2 billion cells every day? No, it has the capacity to, but it doesn't, right? Because of the things that we're putting into our system. The energy necessary to maintain this process is derived from the foods that we eat. If your diet is not providing you with the proper nutrients, your body cannot do its job. We will get sick and continue to get sick until we either change our diets or we die. And unfortunately, that's the sad state of where we're at right now. These are only two choices that we have. And then he talks a lot about meat. I'm not a vegetarian, so you can go ahead and slap me on the wrist for that, because I'm not a vegetarian yet. I'm trying my best to work towards it. But I'm a Southern girl, and my husband is an avid fisherman and an avid hunter, so we haven't given up the meat yet. But he does talk a lot about going to a whole foods, plant-based diet, y'all. That is really where it's at. He said it takes meat an average of 90 hours to be digested. During that time, undigested pieces of meat will remain in the colon and rot, sending toxins in the body, which will slowly kill you. He said the soul food that we so proudly claim is our worst enemy. This food causes bloated stomachs, varicose veins, and other related illnesses. I'm sure that everyone knows on this call at least 10 Black people who have suffered or died from high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. The sad truth of the matter is that these illnesses can be significantly reduced by changing our diets and proper supplementation. And that's just it. That's a fact. Without your health, you have nothing. Money, power, or friends can do little to correct the harm which we bring upon ourselves by eating improper foods, okay? So the things that you can do is stay interested in your health and nutrition. You obviously are, all 100 of you that are on this call, you're staying interested in your health and nutrition. And I'm gonna talk to you a little bit more about what you can do, next steps for health and nutrition, improved health and nutrition. Cut down on your food intake, right? If you're not really hungry, or if you think you're hungry, just go drink a bottle of water. You'll soon determine, I'm not even that hungry, right? I was just talking to someone today on the phone about that. Remove foods that are high in sugar content, candies, cakes, pies, rolls, ice cream, refined sugar, and replace junk foods with fruits and nuts, okay? Replace dairy products such as milk and eggs with their organic counterparts, organic foods, or those produced by nature, such as fresh fruits and vegetables. Replace meats with organic chicken and fish as much as you can. Completely remove all inorganic foods from your diet, that is all synthetic, highly processed, or man-made foods. You want to shop in the perimeter of the grocery store. If you're shopping in the middle, where all of the canned stuff, all the packaged foods are that have a higher shelf life, a longer shelf life, that means the reason why they have a higher shelf life is because they absolutely are going to last longer because they're pumping it with things to make it last longer, i.e. things that come from a lab, okay? You want to also work towards being more healthy and vigorous individual by fasting. Try and fasting 1 day a week. Intermittent fasting is one of the big things that people are doing now to actually give your body time to rest and actually burn more energy. So intermittent fasting is a really good thing to do. And it's actually not that hard to do either. Drinking 2 glasses of water, room temperature water, upon rising each morning. Drinking half your body weight in ounces of water is huge. Water really helps to eliminate toxins in the body and flushes the body to help prevent colds and flu. If you're sick, sufficient amounts of water can reduce the complications of fever as well, okay? Water is the oldest and safest diuretic. It's the oldest and safest diuretic known. Monitoring your urine will tell you the quantity of water that you're actually getting. So if your urine is super bright yellow, you are not getting enough water. Your urine should really be clear and it shouldn't be bright yellow, okay? Also, body poisons are released through the kidneys, and sufficient water reduces the risk of infection because of an overconcentration of urine, okay? So I don't know about y'all. I've said a lot of things tonight about what the issues are. I know for me personally, I didn't have a lot of willpower over food. When I started my health journey almost 7 years ago, I was addicted to Dr. Pepper and French fries. Like, I loved my Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich meal deal. And so it's easy to tell you to do all these things when you feel like you don't even have the willpower to say no to certain things. And it is because of the dysbiosis, the candida overgrowth that's in our systems, that our brain is telling us, no, we need that, when we really don't. Okay, so we're not even able, we don't have the willpower to say, to do any different. And just like someone may be addicted to coffee or addicted to alcohol, people are addicted to sugar. Most people in this country are addicted to sugar. And so the product line that I started out with was a product line called Plexus. It is a very simple pink drink. This pink drink, the reason why I was attracted to it, honestly, is we had so many people in my family that suffer from type 2 diabetes. This product was actually created for type 2 diabetics. So this was extremely, extremely attractive to me because I wanted to get my body healthy from the inside out. I did not want to put synthetic chemicals in my body to get healthy. I had tons of family members, and still do, who are, they have some of these pre-existing conditions, but they are putting a Band-Aid on it, unfortunately. It's getting it in check, but because you are on medications, prescription medications, does not mean that you're now healed and healthy. It means that it's putting a temporary Band-Aid on something, but it's not really addressing and getting to the root cause. And so what I found over the course of 7 years is that these products that I've been taking and my family's been taking for the past 7 years has gotten to the root cause of our health issues. So this is just a really great blood sugar balancer. It has, it's full of chromium and alpha lipoic acid that are great anti-inflammatories, and one of the best and most natural blood sugar balancers, chromium. This is what really helps you to stop having the cravings, craving the crap, craving the junk that a lot of us eat. That this is it, okay? Another one is our probiotic, our ProBio 5. This is one of the best probiotics on the market, simply because it replenishes good gut bacteria, which all probiotics are supposed to do. They're supposed to replenish good gut bacteria, hence the name ProBio. Pro means for, bio means life. However, our probiotic is different because guess what? It addresses that candida yeast that I was talking about. That is one of the underlying conditions of people who are suffering from this issue of coronavirus and not really being able to recover from it. Those high sugar diets, right, that cause you to have that imbalance in your gut, and that candida yeast is overtaken in your body. This is going to kill that candida yeast. It has digestive enzymes and an antifungal that does just that. We also have a really great cleansing supplement. It's called BioCleanse. It is really rich in vitamin C and magnesium. And it is really going to help you to, it's almost like this is scrubbing the toilet. You've got a dirty toilet. So your gut, your insides, right? They talked about blacks and colon cancer. That is all tied to your gut. Your gut is your colon, right? And so when your gut is unhealthy, you've got to scrub that toilet clean, scrub that colon clean. That's going to do this, the ProBio 5. The BioCleanse is then going to flush it. So you would never clean your toilet. I don't know about y'all, but I've been a clean and fool in my house, disinfecting everything all the time, way more than I normally do. It's absolutely out of control. My hands are super dry just because I'm constantly disinfecting. This is the same thing. You're scrubbing the toilet with the ProBio 5 and you're flushing the toilet with the BioCleanse. These are two game changer products. Another thing that people really suffer from in this country is just being overburdened with toxic waste. If you eat 3 times a day, you really should be eliminating, i.e. pooping, 2 to 3 times a day. That's the norm. If you're impacted and you're not going to the bathroom even once a day, which I know lots of people who go every 2, 3, 4 days, that is toxic for your body. Okay, you cannot be well and not be going to the bathroom. A lot of people don't like pooping. They think it's inconvenient. They think it's annoying. They think it's poopy and stinky. Guys, you need to want to poop. If you're not, you are going to be sick. Okay, so the BioCleanse is a really good product for that. Also, 70% of people are deficient in magnesium. This is going to give you more magnesium than you need in a day. Your body will eliminate whatever you don't need. One of the final products I want to talk to you about is our X Factor Plus. Remember, I talked about vitamin A levels are super important for not being immunocompromised. This has more than 250% of the vitamin A that you need every day. This is called our X Factor Plus. It is one of our most popular products because everybody, just like they need to be on a probiotic, you need to be on a probiotic just as much as you need to be on a good quality multivitamin. If you're on a multivitamin and you don't tell the difference when you're taking it, it means that it's probably not effective. This is going to help you to really fill those nutritional gaps. Because just like I said, I have not gone to a whole food plant-based diet yet. However, these supplements have really filled in the gap for some of the poor lifestyle choices that I still continue to make. I mean, I'm human, guys. So although we live and we are mainly adopting a standard American diet, there are things that you can do now to make different choices. And when you truly get to the root, when you truly get to the root cause of your health issue, which 9 times out of 10, and please go Google this, research this, don't just take my word for it, looking at decreasing systemic inflammation in the body, looking at decreasing or healing and repairing your gut, and also looking at balancing your blood sugar, those 3 things are really going to help you to get to the root cause of whatever health issue, underlying or not, that you have, whether it's high blood pressure, heart disease, if it's high cholesterol, diabetes type 1 or type 2, if you suffer from any autoimmune issue, any hormonal imbalances, lupus, Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, GERD, anything, Raynaud syndrome, all of those things are completely tied to your gut. So when you heal the gut, you truly do heal the body. So if you take nothing else from this call, know that proper supplementation, moving your body, just start to move, just walk, just get out and walk. That's the one thing we can do. We can walk in our neighborhood 6 feet away, but we can do that. Just get out and walk, drink plenty of water, half your body weight in ounces, begin to take some quality supplements that will begin to fill the nutritional gaps. And what you'll find is that when you balance your blood sugar, then you will no longer crave a lot of the stuff that we eat that we're addicted to now, and that will help you to make better food choices, which will then create the ripple effect of change that you want to in your family. So I'm going to end with this. This is one of my favorite poems by Sonia Sanchez. She is a famous American poet, writer, and professor. She's born in 1935, is still living today. And it's called Catch the Fire. I've caught a fire, and my dad passed that fire on in me. And it is my just my pleasure and privilege to help just to shape a little bit more in layman's terms what we can do differently in our everyday choices to move the needle a little bit more in our health. So she says, where is your fire? You got to find it and pass it on. You got to find it and pass it on from you to me, from me to her, from her to him, from the son to the father, from the brother to the sister, from the daughter to the mother, from the mother to the child. Where is your fire? I say, where is your fire? Can't you smell it coming out of our past? The fire of living, not dying. The fire of loving, not killing. The fire of blackness, not gangster shadows. Where is our beautiful fire that gave light to the world? The fire of pyramids, the fire that burned through the holes of slave ships and made us breathe. The fire that made guts into chitlins, the fire that took rhythms and made jazz, the fire of sit-ins and marches that made us jump boundaries and barriers, the fire that took street talk sounds and made righteous Imhotep raps. Where is your fire, the torch of life, full of Nzinga and Nat Turner and Garvey and Du Bois and Fannie Lou Hamer, Martin and Malcolm and Mandela? Sister, brother, come, catch your fire, hold your fire, earn your fire, learn your fire, be the fire, live, live, live. We have come from a royal priesthood, guys. Our ancestors died so that we might be able to live the life that we live now and live abundantly. So my prayer is that you just took a snippet of something that was shared today, and let your fire burn and catch that fire and pass it on to someone else. So thank you guys for letting me share tonight. I appreciate all of you for hopping on. It was a blessing.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Robin.
Thank you.
Great call, Robin.
Thank you.
Excellent,
So
Robin.
good. Thank you.
Wonderful.